Excellent. So welcome, Andy, to another edition of the Legal Dispatch. I know we've tried to do this podcast a couple of times in a few different disguises or a few different guises, but we're really happy we could have the conversation today. Looks like it's quite sunny actually in London where you are, or is that an illusion?
I think it is an illusion. So there's quite a lot of windows in this room, but it's a little bit grey and overcast in London today, but warmer. It's not too cold, so it's all good.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Maybe we could just start and do a little introduction to yourself. So tell us, a little bit about Andy and who you work for. It'd be great to kind of just touch a little bit on kind of your previous roles as well. That'd be great because I know they're really interesting.
Sounds good. Firstly, thanks for inviting me along to the podcast, Tyson. It's great to finally, like you say, to get this in the calendar. So I'm Andy Wishart. I run product management for a CLM company called Agiloft. We're one of the leading CLM vendors within the space, so enterprise end-to-end CLM. I've been in the contract space for something close to 25 years now. So prior to Agiloft, I was at Thomson Reuters for a few years, leading product management for them for their contracting solutions. Prior to that, I was co-founder and CTO of Contract Express, which we ran for well over a decade before it was acquired by Thomson Reuters back in 2015. So been in legal tech for pretty much all of my career, and almost all of that career focused on contracting.
Excellent. So yeah, I know we're going to dive a lot, especially into kind of the early days of Contract Express, because I'm quite intrigued to kind of hear all the war stories and this kind of podcast is typically kind of about founders' tips for success or not. But I know you were very successful. But just maybe to kick us off, like, what does a day in the life of Andy look like today? Like in your current role.
Yeah, it's a long day. Product management is pretty tough, right? You're sort of sitting within the organization, collaborating sort of cross-functionally with almost every other department. The most collaboration we do is typically with our engineering team as we're trying to work through ideas and solutions that we're building. So lots of calls. We're a global distributed team, spanning from the Pacific coast all the way through to we have engineers and data scientists in New Zealand. So long days, lots of calls, lots of discussions about how we move things forward. But yeah, it's an exciting role and it's an exciting organization to be part of as well. But we spend a lot of time sort of planning through, what are some of the features that we're going to be building out over the next cycle, the next release cycle. Planning ahead as well, working with our product marketing team on our messaging for a new feature. Maybe meeting with journalists and analysts to talk about new product launches as well. And probably more than all of that external stuff is meeting with customers. So that might be through something formal like a product discovery session or design session with customers, or just helping our teams in helping a customer through a particular issue. So yeah, it's an incredibly varied role, right, within product. We're seen as the experts of the product, so we get wheeled out into a lot of discussions externally as well.
Yeah, I'm always intrigued in kind of that role in terms of, because you're always almost seen as this, not quite, I guess, kind of messiah type role in terms of you always have to be like, constantly looking, so far ahead into the future because obviously, releases kind of take some time to to put into kind of effect, but then also like, you know, you're also kind of, you know, maintaining the existing, so, you know, building and running, quite an interesting role. I mean, you know, to tell us, like, you know, from the twinkle of your eye when you have an idea and when it actually becomes through to the product kind of getting rolled out, you know, how much does it change over that time, and does it always stay true, do you think, to that kind of original problem solve, or, you know, like how does that work?
Well, I think you know, ideas can actually come from everywhere. There
Yeah,
will be ideas coming from lots of people within the organization that are using the product every day. They might come from our partners, right? Our partners are
yeah,
helping our customers you know, get a quick return on their investment in CLM. So ideas can come from everywhere. They can come from customers as well. They do also come from our product managers within the team. But then it's really important to validate those ideas and go through a design process to ensure that, you know, it's feasible to build such a you know, a thing, to sort of validate that it's solving a real problem,
yeah,
getting a sense of what value there is in solving that problem, because that might have implications in how you package it, you price it, how you commercialize it, go to market.
yeah,
So there's a ton of validation, a ton of research that needs to be done to sort of see an idea potentially move through the pipeline before we get into the actual work of building
yeah,
something, you know, maybe prototyping something first, getting that into the hands of potential users to get feedback, and doing it in a
yeah.
really iterative way.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I mean, I know there's a lot of buzz about Agiloft at the moment, and it does seem like there's some really good momentum with the tool, and you know, we're getting lots of great feedback. So you're obviously doing a great job, and you're on the right path.
Yeah, I
Um,
think, and you know, and I think that is way bigger than the pixels that the product team and the engineering team are sort of painting on the screen, and the features and the tools and the capabilities. I think Agiloft,
yeah,
you know, um it is highly regarded as an organization. And I think that's a big part of that is we recognize and understand that contracting is a largely human activity. There are humans in every stage of the process when contracting. There are humans involved in the buy-in and the implementation.
yeah,
So, you know, we really focus on that humanity. We're focused on getting things done for our customers, focused on their success, and then leaving them in a sort of leaving them self-sufficient, you know, so that they can continue to build and drive value from the platform over time. So I think our focus on really good tech, like
yeah,
good data-driven, data-first CLM technology, is a really important part. But
yeah,
also sort of focusing on the human side of contracting, I think sets us apart as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm always interested for busy people, you know, what their habits are, especially kind of, you know, usually kind of waking up in the morning or something like that. But could you give us some, you know, I know you're very, very busy, right? So you're going across kind of multiple time zones, you know, multiple teams, etc. What are your morning habits and rituals? And do you do the same thing every time? Are you a creature of habit, or you're a creature of chaos? Like, how does it work for you? What are the
I'm
things that you
definitely,
do to, yeah, to kind of, I guess, to manage the stress as well?
well, I think it's a really varied role, and every day is genuinely different. Um, so as much as I would love to be pretty regimented and doing things in a very structured way, I'm kind of like that. I've got to be flexible, and I think um, being flexible in this type of role means, you know, if you can grab an hour slot here and that's when I'm going to take the dog a walk, or I've got maybe a later start in the day and shift in my day, I'll try and do something fun in the morning. I play a fair amount of tennis. Um, and I'm really lucky that I've got a tennis club very close to the house. So I love to try and get a couple of matches of tennis in during the week and first thing in the morning.
Yeah, nice. So is that where, I mean, where do you do your best thinking? Is it, do you think walking the dog or playing tennis, where you probably tennis is probably a little bit different, right? You're a bit more
Yeah,
present in terms of hitting a ball.
yeah,
Mm.
definitely on the walks in the morning.
Yeah.
I live in London, but we're really close to one of the commons here in South London. So taking a walk with the dog in the morning
Yeah.
is often a really good time to sort of reflect and plan and think about the day, the week ahead. Yeah, so that's pr probably my most inspiring time. Tennis less so. I'm just huffing and puffing for and can't really think anything much when I'm playing tennis. But yeah, definitely on the dog walk. That's a chilled time.
Yeah. I mean, maybe changing it up a little bit. Like, if you were asked to do a TED talk on a topic that is not your main area of expertise, what would you do a talk on, and why?
Oh, that is really tough because I don't know if I know anything other than contract management and document automation and legal tech. Um, well, maybe again thinking about the sort of I was talking about the sort of humanity of CLM. I've got a real interest in psychology and in fact, I graduated back in the late 90s in psychology and artificial intelligence, which is a really bizarre sort of combined degree, particularly
Yeah.
way back then as well.
Yeah.
And half of that was about trying to build intelligent systems. Machine learning was sort of really in its infancy then, so there was a lot of rules-based sort of
Yeah.
solutions, expert systems. But then the psychology half of my undergraduate degree, which was really focused on things like cognitive science, linguistics, memory, vision. I find that incredibly fascinating. So I think somewhere at the intersection between like the history of AI and psychology. That sounds really fancy, like I know a ton about that, which I probably don't. But I think sort of yeah, something around sort of cognitive science and vision and its relation to technology as well. Or alternatively, I'm very efficient at doing laundry, which is another passion of mine. So maybe like how to efficiently do a whole family's laundry in the least amount of time possible. Those would be the two potential TED Talks, I think.
It's so bizarre, like you say that, because like I've just finished doing like a leadership course with some really interesting and kind of very different people from different backgrounds, and one was he was he's a coach at the Milwaukee Bucks, the NBA team.
Wow.
And we were talking about like the things that you do that you love and enjoy, that are quite mundane and seem like really trivial to other people. For him, he like I was asking, like, when you won the NBA, what did you do? And he said, I just went and mowed my lawn.
Yeah.
And the kind of the therapeutic thing of mowing a lawn, which I could have probably, say the same thing probably for doing the laundry, I imagine, for making, something dirty clean, separating the colors, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's quite a kind of switch off kind of topic, but still practical. And
Yeah.
out of that, I've discovered that there's almost a podcast on everything. There is a podcast on mowing your lawn. I'm
No,
sure there's a podcast on doing your laundry.
I'm sure
So
there is.
maybe you should take a look at it and see if there's anything. Maybe you could guest on one of those podcasts.
I would
Yeah.
have to keep that secret because if my family and my kids found out that I was listening to podcasts on laundry, they would just roast me even more for being completely and utterly mad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have to secretly check that one out.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I'm always intrigued about the the moment that you decide to become a founder or an entrepreneur, like where you dive off the cliff essentially. Because it's scary and it's risky and it's you don't know if you're gonna have dinner on the table. Can you tell us about that conversation? Tell us the story about the time and what pushed you over the edge, to do this. And, what was the conversation you had either with yourself or your partner and said, you know what, I'm going to do it. Like, tell us a story about that. I guess it's related to Contract Express, right?
Yeah, and Contract Express was unusual and it's quite nuanced. There really wasn't that sort of moment of, yes, I'm doing this thing. Because the origins of Contract Express was really quite interesting. There was, and still is, an AI company in the UK called Logic Program and Associates, LPA. And they were a client, and I'm going back to the sort of late 90s, early 2000. They were a client of a tech-focused law firm in London called Tarlow Lyons, which then became Blake Morgan. And I think Blake Morgan, they are now. And the AI company was a client. They were being advised by the law firm, and the AI company had been doing some research around the creation of documents. And so a partner in the law firm, John Mahood, really smart guy, super guy, started to work with AI company to say, well, isn't there an opportunity here to apply this to legal documents?
Yeah.
So the law firm put in some seed funding, brought in a consultant who was doing an evaluation on whether there was value here and whether there was opportunity. That consultant agreed that there was, and in fact, the consultant joined as chairman. And that guy was Henry Steen. So back at that time, there was a sort of formation of the idea of applying this technology, sort of rules-driven AI. It was effectively a rules-driven AI expert system to document automation. They had the structure in place with the funding from the law firm and the consultant, and they were looking for the team to help sort of build it and drive it forward. I had just come out of, I was doing some research and teaching at Edinburgh University in AI and psychology. And I think that background in AI was something that they were really interested in, invited me to come down and have a discussion with them. And I knew nothing about legal. I knew nothing about legal technology, although, obviously legal technology was in its infancy back then. But I saw something in this tech and the idea and the sort of passion of the 2 or 3 people around it that I was like, I'd love to be a part of this. And joined, and I guess the sort of rest is history. It was a slow, organic build. There was that seed funding in place, but we then sort of grew it, bootstrapped it in a very organic way over a number of years. Yeah, we were probably way ahead of our time in terms of the market. Back at that point, there was only certain law firms within the market that were really ready for that type of investment in technology. Like crossing the chasm, so to speak, took a long time for Contract Express.
Yeah. Did you have a willing client to be experimented on, or did you did you have to really like pound the pavement and knock down those doors?
No, like fairly early on, like within the first 12 months, I think we had landed Linklaters as our first customer. And and we had a proof of concept running with Clifford Chance at the same time, I think Freshfields. Like the strategy was very much, let's go after the magic circle. If we can prove it there, then the rest of the market would follow. And, it was a bold strategy. Our chairman, Henry Steen, was like, this is the head buffalo strategy. We're going at the top of the pyramid. Let's prove it out there. and the rest of the market will follow. So we were really, really fortunate to get success in a short period of time. We had a prototype, we sort of built that out, we sold it. We were able to do that deal with Linklaters in probably less than 12 months. It was a hard 12 months, but we got there, and we learned a ton along that process as well.
I mean, now there's goods and there's pluses and minuses, right? I guess to being way before your time in terms of there's no competition, you're breaking new ground, the market's not saturated, etc. I mean, what would be your advice to a founder that is starting in today's market, given that, especially in the contract world, for example? I mean, there's always going to be new problems to solve, right? But what would be your advice to a new founder that is starting today? Thinking back to kind of where you guys were, was it 23 years ago?
Yeah. So just going back to 23 years ago, there was an incumbent in the market. Document automation had been around for maybe 10 years prior to that. It sort of originated around the same time as word processing did. So hot docs were in the market. They were pretty well known. So it wasn't completely plain sailing coming into a fresh market and we were the only ones. I think my advice today, like, the barriers to entry to get into legal tech are pretty low, right? There is capital out there that is relatively easy to get to. I think advances in AI and generative AI provides a set of toolkits to be able to build something pretty interesting within the contracting space. The challenge is, how do you bring something unique? How do you bring a unique story, a unique set of capabilities that is differentiated over the masses of tools? Like, just think of the masses of tools that are within the overall contract technology space now. There are like hundreds. So you've got to be able to stand out. I think marketing is really important, how you position yourself, that you've got a differentiated story, a differentiated capability. That might not necessarily be something that has never been done before, but you're bringing a fresh approach to it, a better approach to that particular problem that may have been solved before, but you're doing it in a uniquely different way that and you're getting traction, you're getting user adoption, you're getting feedback, you're getting recommendations, you're getting reviews of those capabilities that can stand up. It's tough.
It's tough. But
there's money. There's, I think, still a lot of opportunity if you look broadly across geographies like North America, UK, Ireland, Europe. The vast majority of organizations don't have contracting solutions. So there is still opportunity. There is a lot of opportunity there. I think a tough part for any founder, and we found this even back with Contract Express, particularly within the CLM space. Like, Contract Express was really good at self-service generation, creation of documents. And if you're a startup coming into the space, you're probably going to have a laser-like focus on a particular problem. The challenge, of course, is that most buyers, most organizations now are looking for end-to-end. They're looking for full stack solutions that are taking the contracts from initiation all the way through to execution and management and optimizing your process. So I think it's tough to come in with a point solution. I think coming in with a point solution does require you to establish the partnerships that you might need to fit into this broader ecosystem to have success.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, to be honest, I'd echo that observation. Like, some of the point solutions that we've been, in chats with to partner with, I guess, over the last 12 to 18 months or 24 months even. Like, it's definitely much harder to sell a point solution than it is to, people come out with essentially, they certainly come to us typically with a big problem to solve, or, like, I have nothing. I want to either replace a contracting or a matter management tool or a front door or automation or something like that. It's very rarely that it is, I need a pop-up to give me some prompts on a playbook or something like that. So it's definitely kind of more enterprise-worthy end-to-end solutions that we see getting traction in the marketplace, and also these big projects, I guess, to standardize that language across organizations, outside of legal as well, and because let's face it, legal is one step in the process typically of either doing a deal or, or solving an issue. So it's important that kind of those tools also talk to other parts of the business.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree.
Well, it's definitely not impossible for point solutions to be successful. There's loads of examples within the legal tech community and even within the contracting solutions. I think the approach, though, there has to be a recognition that you're not there to solve all of the problems. So you need to work with the other tools. So I think that means, taking an API first based approach, so it could be easily integrated, and maybe even building experiences within Microsoft Word, because that's a common platform that users are going to be using throughout contracting. Now, I know there's a bucket of people who believe that Word is not the right venue for negotiating and contracting, that there is a better approach, a proprietary approach within some CLM tools. I don't believe that. I think Word is the right environment for negotiation and drafting. So I think if point solutions are bringing something new to the table, figuring out how they're going to sit within Microsoft Word to mingle with other solutions that are inside Microsoft Word, including things like Microsoft's own 365 Copilot.
Yeah.
So being able to have a solution that sort of integrates into their workflow in the tools that they're using at a particular point in the workflow, I think is really important.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe changing it up a little bit, like if you hear the word, or if you think of the word successful, who's the first person that comes to your mind, and why?
Oh, well, all right, two people. And one, because this is a psych podcast and I'm a good friend with Alistair, I'm going to say the first person Alistair made in, because we go back a long way. He was, we provided Alistair with Contract Express, and he built a fantastic solution, sort of drive a real significant change within the organization using CLM and contracting solutions there. And to see the success of Psych after he'd left Asda, and to see the growth of Psych, it's been fantastic. So Alistair, he's going to be my number one. Now, this is going to make him sound really big. He's going to be very big-headed when I say my second one is Satya Nadella. I don't know what Alistair's response to that will be, but like what Nadella has done at Microsoft over his role as CEO is pretty amazing, right? They were behind AWS on cloud. They were probably a little bit behind in Google. They were behind Google in terms of AI capabilities. Like what he's achieved over that period of time to drive this sort of explosion of Azure, like from a product perspective, I love to see the evolution of Microsoft 365, Teams coming in at the right point in time as everyone obviously didn't know the pandemic was coming, but the just sort of timing of Microsoft 365 and sort of cloud adoption and Teams and the growth of Teams over that period is pretty spectacular. And then, even come up to current day, their strategy around OpenAI and OpenAI services within Azure is pretty impressive. As a technologist, I've always been fascinated and impressed by that.
Yeah, it does seem to me like if you were to hedge a bet, like Microsoft may win the race, wouldn't you say? Like they've got big pockets to invest in their product. Obviously, it's still probably the most used tool across any organization. Like I think it seems to me that they're investing in the right things, and it's the product is improving constantly, which is great. So I guess, yeah, definitely credit to him. I won't talk about Alistair because I don't want him to get an even bigger head than you've just said. But yeah, that's great. I mean, 100%. Like he's very dear to my heart. So I'm like, it's amazing that you mentioned him, because it would definitely be someone that I would say too. It's been a great journey at Psych, and we're looking forward to the next one too.
Yeah, big exciting times ahead for the organization and Concilio as well.
Yeah, exactly. What about thinking about failures or making mistakes? Well, how has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Did you have a favorite failure of yours?
There definitely been several. I think that just the nature of the product management role is that there are going to be certain things that are not going to work out, and obviously it's important to recognize that quickly and retrench and figure out an alternative path forward. So there are lots of examples of where things have not worked out right for me professionally. Do I have a favorite? I'm not so sure. I think there are examples where I've maybe had in my mind that this particular product or feature or capability is like really, really important, and it's going to be game changing. And like, I really, truly believe that. And then, the next step is I've got to go out and validate that with research before we decide, yep, that's the thing. Like the research, we've got to do that. But I think when you get really, really focused on a particular idea and you've got this conviction that it's going to be a game changer, I do worry that the product manager could potentially, be taken bias into that research and shape the research in a way that you're going to get the result out that you're really, really looking for. And I think, there's maybe been occasions where that may have happened. And I think the learning from that experience is to just try and detach from it, be more objective, don't sort of constrain the research and the discovery so that you're getting the answer that you're looking for, because it is really important to, validate, do make sure that there is a problem to solve, validate that the solution is the right approach to solving that problem. So I think there's lots of examples in my past of that. Other, not so much failures, but potentially missed opportunities. I think about going back to the early days of Contract Express, when Contract Express was beginning to get a pretty decent foothold, especially here in the UK within the top 100 or top 50 law firms. And HiQ was doing something really similar on collaboration. So really early days, I remember meeting with Stuart and AJ and some of the other team so Stuart Barn, AJ Patel at HiQ. And we were exploring, how does Contract Express and HiQ come together? And we didn't manage to make that work at that time. And that was probably going back maybe 10 years before their acquisition from Thomson Reuters. But I always had this admiration of Haiku as an organization and as a product as well, that I regret that we weren't able to make those things come together in some form back then. I think I was probably too stuck in thoughts about, the pricing and the way in which it would work.
Yeah.
So maybe some regrets there. Obviously, ironically, we both end up at Thomson Reuters and both get integrated together eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, there may be moments in the past where I thought, with the benefit of hindsight, there have been missed opportunities for driving more value within the legal tech ecosystem.
Yeah. What point during Contract Express did you make a decision to sell it, essentially?
Well, I think we were organically grown, with the exception of the sort of seed funding right at the beginning. And I think, there were a number of reasons. We'd shown really significant growth over a period, particularly the last 3 years prior to the acquisition by Thomson Reuters. So things were going really well. We felt that in order to take it to the next level, it needed further investment. We needed to accelerate product development. We needed to get a sort of wider reach from a marketing and go-to-market perspective. And there was some of the realities of the shareholders and the co-founders wanting to find a potential exit. So the timing felt right for everyone back in 2015. We set a plan. We were like, okay, let's work on this multi-year plan to this point. We pretty much executed it to the month. I think we'd originally set September of 2015 was, we're working up to that date, and we exited to TR in the October. So yeah, we had a plan and executed on that.
Yeah, nice. I'm always interested to kind of like, what is that tipping point where you realize that you've to take it to that next level. Is it geography? Is it a 15 million revenue, or is it a number, or is it more organic in terms of people start knocking on your door? But yeah, that's interesting that it was kind of all planned out essentially. Well, yeah. What about what advice would you give to your younger self? Like, Andy's leaving uni, embarking on his career. I don't want to say you're in the twilight of your career now, mate, but well, yeah. But if you say it, I'll let you. No, yeah. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, that's tough. I worked really hard, like in the early days, particularly with, the early days of Contract Express. What would be my advice? Make sure you have a lot of fun along the way as well. I think that's really important. I think there have probably been moments in my career where I maybe taken it too seriously. So I think it's important to get a balance, make sure that you've got a balance between work and your interests outside, so that you don't get to this stage in your career and the only topic that you could talk to on a TED talk is laundry. So I think having interests outside of your passion, which is tough because when you're really passionate about it, it's all consuming. But I think I think my advice to my younger self would be to have a broader set of interests, broader passions outside of your core thing, and have more fun and maybe more holidays as well.
Yeah, I know it. Like it's a very familiar story in terms of most founders, in terms of that first 10 years, like really poor balance in terms of family life, being present, you know, not much holidays, not much pay, to
Yeah.
be honest. And so yeah, like, but it's successful in the end, you know. So like, I guess, is that the price you need to pay for that success? Because it doesn't seem like I've spoken, you know, and I've spoken to like nearly 15, 16 founders now of legal tech, and they're all, you know, all the major ones, and they all say the same thing. So it's not like probably for not want of trying, I imagine, to have a bit more balanced life. It's almost like that's what it takes to get the job
Yeah.
done. Would you say?
I think that's fair. You know, I think it's a fair point. Obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, having gone through that pain and those challenges to get to the point where, you know, we are in our careers, I think you're probably right. But maybe
Yeah,
just a little bit more fun.
yeah, a little bit of skiing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just to kind of wrap it up, and you know, thanks. You've been a wonderful guest. I've really enjoyed the chats and the insights. What about a theme song? Do you have a Andy Wishart theme song?
Oh,
I feel like we probably should have ended up in some dodgy karaoke pubs in and around London over the years. But you know, what would be your theme song?
I think that is you know, I think it would depend on the context. But if it was like a fun context, I would go probably I'm going to be 500 miles from the Proclaimers, because that would be my go-to song within a karaoke for a bit of fun. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Proclaimers.
They're
I'm going to
Scottish,
be.
right?
They are, in fact, they are from the Kingdom of Fife, where I grew up. They're from a fabulously named place called Auchtermuchty. There are not that
Wow.
many non-Scots that can say Auchtermuchty, which is a very cool place.
Excellent.
So yeah, they grew up relatively close to where I grew up in the Kingdom of Fife.
Wow. Wow. Excellent. All right. Well, Andy, thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you. Really great insight, and I'm sure people, you know, will take a lot away from that. So many, many thanks.
Oh, you bet, Tyson. Thanks for having me on. You know, we've had a great partnership with Psych here at Agiloft, and prior to that with Contract Express. So best of luck to everyone in the new Concilio world as well. Really excited to see where things go next under Concilio. So thanks for having me on, Tyson.
Cheers, Andy.
See you.